hello again.
Welcome to Two Left Feet.
Right, so today, what we're talking about, we're going to talk about...
Infantilizing dancers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Have you ever been infantilized as a dancer?
Yeah. Talking about being infantilized is like just one of the versions of being sort of patronized that happens with dancers, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because dancers are also framed as not being very intelligent. I felt like that when I have been maybe excluded from certain conversations or have been not treated as someone who has something equal to offer as everyone else in the room or sort of just as someone who needs to be schooled a bit or monitored a bit or like taught something that the choreographer has
Right.
themselves that they need to teach the dancers that they're working with.
What was maybe one thing like that they had to teach you that they didn't deem you...
Like how to look after my body.
Oh, right, yeah, okay.
Like fitness, for example, or...
Isn't that weird? Because like clearly you've been through like quite a rigorous training, which, I mean, you survived, so you do know how to look after your own body. Like you're one of the most expert people. I mean, as a dance trainer person. No, as a person who trained in dance.
Yeah, I mean, in the situation I'm thinking of, I have had exactly the same training as the person I'm working for because we went to the same school. So it's kind of like, if there's a very didactic warm-up at the beginning of every day when I'm working with someone, then I find that a bit infantilizing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think sometimes there are really specific things that need to be like cultivated in a room, and warming up together is really great, but sometimes it doesn't actually... That's not the purpose it's serving. It's just like feels like a choreographer thinks that I need a bit more training or that I need to be more fit or I need more stamina. I think it often does come in this like how it makes me feel judged, especially when it comes to my body.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think that's just tip of the iceberg, because like if you work in a ballet company, then I think the level of infantilization is like through the roof compared to what I've maybe experienced in the contemporary dance world.
Yeah.
Do you have any like feelings associated with it?
Yeah, infantilization. Yeah, I think... What is there? I think for me, generally, I'm just going to say something really general for me, which is like something about my particular dance experiences and what that's given me is kind of like quite a soft... I probably had this anyway, but quite a soft demeanour, quite a willingness to understand others and a kind of general empathy. And I think people sometimes take advantage of that and kind of assume that because I'm being so nice, I'm not clever. That I need to be talked down to.
Yeah.
So that aside, maybe moving on to some kind of anecdotal stuff. I remember once having a long, probably about a 3-hour morning chat with the choreographer and the dramaturg on something, and we were getting really deep in, all three of us bouncing off, having a great time, and then after lunch I was told, do you want to go warm up for half an hour? We're just going to keep talking about stuff. And I felt like I was vital to that first conversation about the work, about what... Because it was a solo for me to perform. I thought, I'm a vital part of this trio of discussion. And then there was this point where it was like, we're going to work in the studio soon, so you go do dancer stuff, and we're going to keep talking about what you're going to do. And it... I don't know, like, there's multiple sides to it. I did need to warm up, but I don't think I needed to be left out of the conversation about what I would do and what it would mean and what I would be asked to do.
But there's so much tied into that example, because like it also makes me think of like a sense of like needing to use time like really efficiently.
Yeah.
Like, we can't waste any time. We can't just sit and like relax while our dancer warms up, or we can't like do a bit of physical,
getting ready,
attend to our bodies in this moment for whatever we need to do, which might be like sitting down for the next 3 hours to watch this performer. And it's fine if one person isn't like working in that half hour that you're warming up. Also, just exactly. I feel like I've had this experience of just like being asked to like be absent from a conversation with the dramaturg. And sometimes I think it's very appropriate that like not everyone in the project needs to be like involved in every single conversation. So like sometimes it's really appropriate that the choreographer and the lighting designer, or the choreographer and the technician and the choreographer and the dramaturg have individual conversations. But sometimes it's happened persistently and like across all types of conversation where I've felt like I'm arbitrarily asked to be involved or not involved. So there'll be artistic conversations when I'm there, and then there'll be artistic conversations when I'm not there, and then it's this question of like, oh, was I not really needed? Like, was I kind of already disposable? And also, you're talking about me.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, am I not relevant to this? Is it not important for me to know these things that you're talking about me doing? Like, it's a weird question. It's like, it feels important for me to know what I'm doing. I suppose maybe the idea is that over the rehearsal time I would be privy to the intellectual side of things, but I don't know, there's not usually time for that, is there? It's like, let's get the material on top, get you on top of the material.
I've experienced this dismissal, and it may be slightly different to what you experienced. I don't know if this was there in your situation, but where it's like, I don't think the dancers will take it very well, what we're about to talk about. They might take it too personally. We don't want to like get too into it because they'll probably want to like expand upon it and talk about it too much. They'll actually problematize it too much. So let's just have this conversation where we like, I mean, I don't even know what they were talking about, but it was something that we would have been too sensitive about, maybe. Things being withheld in a way in which you feel like you're gonna, it's because you'll react wrong.
And also there's this like, I think there's a really even more positive spin that people put on that kind of stuff, which is like, they're gonna provide this service for the performer of bringing something out of you, like, I'm gonna give you this really vague description of what you'll be doing in order to bring out a level of performance you didn't even know you could do.
You didn't even know it was in you. But if I told you what I wanted, you would have done something different. You would have done your version, and that wouldn't have been as authentic or something. I'm going to actually make you cry. And then that will really look like you're crying. Whereas if I told you to cry, you'd be doing fake crying. And that's just not as good.
Stupid idiot. In a way, like, this kind of method acting thing it's also an acting way of doing things.
It's true.
And it's also a live art thing. It's like, I suppose bloodletting is not pretend. It starts to go really weird when someone's getting an employee to do something for real. Feel something for real, or I guess that's it. It's when you've not made the decision to do it yourself. And I guess also, just as a kind of caveat, perhaps the people who have made the decision themselves are responding to market forces, which mean that it's not really their decision whether or not they take things way overboard. It's actually just the kind of sensationalist market that we are in that means that they've done that in order to garner more success.
And it's a cultural kind of force being pushed towards treating content in this way of like needing more sensation. It's like, makes me think of so this conversation reminded me of another conversation that I've had with Sue Mayo, who is a friend and collaborator, and instead of you having to listen to me remember that conversation and probably hack it to pieces, we decided to get Sue on the line. So this is a conversation that we had with Sue. I was like, oh, this makes me think of a conversation I had with Sue. Maybe it was when we were working together, I can't remember, of talking about how much you disclose to participants within a project. And in your context, this is kind of often working with not non-professional performers.
Yes.
So there's a whole other kind of layer of where the boundaries might be or what the kind of ethics are around that.
Yes. Yeah. No, that feels very familiar to me. I think there's a kind of there's a sort of rhythm in participatory work, which is that you're leading and you're following. You have to kind of keep moving between leading and following. That's a really nice rhythm. So it might be that you propose something, but then in what the group make of that, you see a thing to follow and build on. And so I think that's a kind of ideal that you're working towards. But of course, particularly with work where you're working with non-professional dancers, you've got to invite people to something. You invite them to something. I'm personally not massively at ease with the completely empty space, blank page approach. And I certainly remember paying for, particularly for kind of dance summer schools, where the first thing that happened was that the teacher said to us, what would you all like to do? And I thought, I would like you to do something because I fucking paid a lot of money. And so I think it's absolutely correct to expect the person who's got some sort of responsibility to be framing it and to have ideas and to be proposing things. But I think one thing I've become more aware of is as I move, particularly as I love collaborating with people, and I sometimes collaborate with a new person and I think, oh, I've just reached my boundary there, which is when their vision is the main thing. And they're inviting people only into their vision. And then if they stray from that vision, that's not really possible. Now, I know I'm like that to an extent. So, you and I have worked on things and I've known what the theme was and I've known kind of roughly where I wanted it to get to. But I can really feel in myself that I must have a sort of boundary where I'm saying to myself, they're not just here to do your piece. And so I'm not even quite sure how to articulate that. But I know because I sometimes work with people for whom the deal is, I'm going to do an amazing show about X. And I love to have non-professional people come and join it. And what you get out of it is that I choreograph you, I direct you, you join in my vision. And for me, then that's not my comfort zone, because I'm not sure what they're doing there then, and why you're not using people you pay.
Yeah. So the transaction isn't fair somehow.
That's right. But also, I mean, I say that and then I think, is it okay with people you pay?
Well,
not to let them in.
I remember reading something about how a choreographer has to, the more the performers know the work, the less the choreographer knows, like the inner workings of what it is. Like there's this kind of, the choreographer knows more at the beginning and then less as time goes on, and having to be okay with this thing of like, I don't actually know where your foot goes in that moment, and you all know it.
Yeah, because you're in doing it.
Yeah. And you have to kind of like, if you decide to, keep your status in that place where you have to know it all, it might just kind of not ring true to the reality of what's happening.
I remember you talking about sometimes a director might want to hold on to some kind of essence or sort of atmosphere of people doing something for the first time, or the kind of watching people who aren't professional do something can have its own kind of joy and its own kind of interest. And but if you try and hold on to this sort of freshness or innocence too much, then you actually end up, or directors can sometimes choose, oh, let's not tell them all the instructions, because they'll lose that sort of naive spark.
Yeah. I think that I have had the incredible good fortune to work particularly with one group of people every year for a long time. I think that that has really pushed me not to objectify them, because I know them well now and they know me well. And the importance of respecting where they come from, what they're bringing, what they want, has really gone up. And I think that perhaps one of the things about participatory work is you can often work with people for quite a short time. And of course, that's got a kind of excitement to it. And there are lots of people who don't want to do this all the time. They want to do it as a short-term project. But there's been something very important to me about working, particularly with this group of adult women, over a lot of years. And I've, had ups and downs and challenges and so on. And I think that it would seem unimaginable to me now to kind of trick them or not to disclose. At the same time, I think what I've gained from it is that they're massively willing to take risks. And, I've got so many kind of so much documentation of feedback where people say, you said we would do this and I didn't believe you. You said we would perform this at the South Bank Centre and I didn't believe you. You said we would create X and I thought, yeah, right. And, so what you get back, what you have to show is how to hold it so that the group can get there. That's the deal, I guess, is that you don't do that. And I do think you want that. I had a participant in a project who would always say, why am I doing this? What's the purpose? Why am I doing this? And she did stop herself really from experimenting ever, because she needed to know the purpose in order to fulfill it, or to say, no, I don't want to do that. So, that was fine and it was her right. But I also feel if you're going to work creatively, you do want to go to places you didn't know you were going to go to, and you do want to take risks. So it's not about sewing it up and having kind of very firm kind of guardrails. I often think of those, I think they're called guardrails in bowling, aren't they? So the ball can't go too far. You have to kind of work out how wide that's going to be and how narrow that's going to be. But I think that's probably the deal, is that people trust you to know how to get there and what might be necessary to support it.
Yeah.
And they trust you with their opinions and their desires on it.
Something like leaving open space and kind of getting people to do kind of vague exercises and then immediately hitting them with kind of like the rigid idea afterwards or something. I feel like I've had that before, where I've been kind of asked into a task which is very open and sprawling, and then suddenly comes in but not like that, let's do it like this. A kind of like a bait and switch kind of mechanism of choreography.
Yeah.
No, I really like that. And I remember talking to somebody in a National Trust property about participation, and she was very excited because they had a huge model boat, and she used to approach members of the public and say, do you like sailing? Are you interested in boats? And the minute they began talking, she'd say, because we've got this. In fact, it was a fake interest in their, and I can imagine thinking, oh, this is good, I'll start with them. But actually it was just kind of placing a coin in their head to make them come to see it, and then to talk endlessly about it. And actually there was so much more possibility there, because somebody might have said, I love sailing, and then she could have said, you want to look at this boat and then tell me about, is this anything like what you, it could have carried on, it could have been a dialogue, but actually there was always the trap. There was actually a trap, there was the bait, there's the bait, and then there's the
yeah. And you're in this like very small framework again.
Yeah. And it's that old, Freirean thing about banking, education being the banking model, which is that the recipient is empty and you bank knowledge in them. And Freire says, no, in education, you're both learning, you're learning together. So I think, it was 1968 when he wrote that book, but we're still fighting for that kind of education, actually, that kind of way of working together.
Yeah. Big time.
Yeah, I feel like there's something in this infantilization thing of like trust, like trusting that the person you're working with has something to offer, and like if you infantilize someone, you kind of don't trust that they are bringing anything to the table. It's exactly this thing of banking. You don't trust this empty vessel, really. You don't even see them as a person.
And I think what people often think in dance is that what you bring is like, it's really vessel-like, it's your body, and anything can be put be put on it or in it, and you do those things.
Yeah.
Or you bring like beauty, or you bring youth, or you bring, whatever it might be,
explosivity
to their, you bring athleticism, but all of those things, or it depends if those things are treated as like vessels for an idea, or whether they're treated as like actual qualities that might have unexpected dimensions. So the fact that you're really beautiful might actually mean you're like painfully shy, or that you're really young might mean that you have a completely different outlook on the world. And what does that mean, rather than like
how do you work with that?
Rather than just an objectifying kind of thing.
And I was just thinking about the the kind of complexity of people, that somebody, I remember there's a little game that I do sometimes where people just talk about their hands, and a very, very frail older woman just said, I swim, and I would not have known how beautiful her hands were, because they were always on her lap, and she was kind of being wheeled everywhere. Just the most extraordinary hands. And I think it's how do we keep asking things of the people we're working with, which allow them to show a different facet. And there's something about, I think, the thinking, are my requests always asking the same thing of people? Am I continually asking people to show this side of themselves? That they could, this leg extension, or this ability to be touch and be touched. Am I testing that? Am I actually, by the limit of my invitations and my questions, only ever seeing one facet of people? And I would think that's quite common, actually. What is it that you could do so that people suddenly show you something that you hadn't seen in room? And I think that's a really interesting thing. And there's absolutely no doubt that I would have taken in so many things, I think, both in dance and in acting, about what I should be presenting, what should I be offering, who is the me I should be offering at this point, and feeling absolutely sure that this other bit of me wouldn't be very interesting or acceptable. And so I think that's also a really interesting question, is what are we discouraging from entering the room with those people?
Which is kind of funny, because we talk about versatility in the other video, but actually it's like versatility within quite a narrow segment of yourself.
Yeah.
So be ready to do anything, but also don't show, like, strong filter. Don't show this side of you. Or,
Also, that's the leader's menu of versatility.
Yeah.
Yes.
What if you were in charge of the menu of versatility? That's a different thing. I was wondering a bit about whether the kind of connection between silence and dance is also important, because I guess in theatre work people are talking to you all the time, and I wondered whether choreographers can shut dancers up more easily, so there's less opportunity to fight back.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean,
divide and conquer.
I think that's a really good point. Well, you joked in our little intro video that the point of this show is to have dancers talking, because we don't talk much. We just...
I think also there's something there's probably the schooling of dance training is a little bit learning to be quiet, but then it kind of creates this dynamic of the naughty kids, because you start to want to talk, I think, and be the kid at the back of the class who's speaking when you're not supposed to, because there's so much time when you're not supposed to speak. Then suddenly you kind of act up in a kind of childish way, even when that's maybe not your you never wanted to kind of be a naughty kid, but the situation is such that that's the only thing you can do to express yourself and your agency in that situation, is to kind of be a bit naughty.
And also a lot of weight is put onto body language. And I think, body language is really, really important. But I remember being told at the place, like, that, sort of teacher saying to me, you just look like you're not trying. And, like, you were crossing your arms. So I was sort of standing in class, like, watching a phrase that I was going to have to learn, not thinking at all about what this might give across. If you'd asked me how I felt, I wouldn't have articulated I was fed up. I would have said, like, I was concentrating really hard because it looked difficult or something. But if you've got a teacher who probably has their own insecurities and maybe is wondering whether these third-year students like what they're doing, and they're all a bit sassy and whatever, they're probably reading, oh God, this person is resisting what I'm doing, and they're being a bit rude.
Yes.
Or like other people essentially being told that they have, like their face is, or what do people say, like resting bitch face. Certain people being, and the same people being told over and over again that they didn't look like they were having a good time, like really without asking whether they were having a good time. So it just becomes like a feedback on your dancing, including your face, including like your gestures in between the dancing. So any of this, or like, and then actually that becomes like, or it risks becoming also a bit racialized if there are minorities in the room, because people are just not used. I don't know, like the lines get drawn in really funny places just through who the teacher.
Also, I mean, I think you just hit exactly on something so important there, which is that the outside person is telling you what you were feeling from what they're looking at, and that's absolute bollocks. I would burn Desmond Morris's books on body language, seriously, because they are completely Eurocentric. They're all about the importance of the gaze of the person watching, and I think it's absolute nonsense. I think it's really nonsense to decide that arm crossing means this, crossed legs means this. It just saves you from asking the person, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It just preserves your judgment over the autonomy of the person you're looking at. I think it's really worrying, and I think it's very racialized, and I think it's been used in such destructive ways, and it makes people feel so clever. Did you notice what that person did? So I know I have all the knowledge about how they were feeling because they cleaned their glasses at this particular they just couldn't look. They were so ashamed. They just couldn't look at what was going on in the room, took their glasses off. So it's all about my knowledge over your knowledge. So I think it goes back to what we were talking about, what you were saying, Lewis, about trusting that what is the other person bringing? What have they got to tell me? And it doesn't mean that they don't want to learn from you and they wouldn't love to learn like a piece of choreography, or they wouldn't want to be stretched, invited to take risks. It doesn't mean any of those things, but it means not making a pedestal out of your knowledge as opposed to the other person's knowledge.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Just like you realise how like internalized those. I'm kind of at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, maybe I was fed up. And then I'm like, but I don't think I was. But I just was told that I looked like I wasn't participating well.
Then there's a risk of getting cast in that role.
Oh my God, yeah.
As well, and you end up casting yourself in that role.
Yeah. Because
you've been told so many times that you looked fed up, and you're like, well, I'm the fed up one.
Mm.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to go in 5 minutes to get my new glasses.
Oh, nice.
Great.
Bye.
Lots of love. Bye.
All right, well, so see you next time
on that note,
2 Left Feet.
Thanks for watching. You've been amazing.
You've been amazing.
Come back next time.
Come back next time.